Hello, Walter. How are you? Doing well, thank you. It's been a busy day, and that's why I'm glad to be talking to people who can help with that. So let me do a quick introduction of myself and the project, and then I have a couple of questions. This is a screen. I just want to get a general sense of, well, I want to get a sense of what you've done, how it relates to this project, give you a chance to ask some questions. And then for trying to get down to some finalists to bring back for a panel interview, if possible, even later this week with the business owner and one of the managers from the PMO. So we may jump around a little. I just, be enough to get a sense of what you've done, give you a chance to understand us better. So us is Synchrony Financial, a financial services company with a few lines of business. The bulk of the business is in credit cards, Amazon, Lowe's, TJ Maxx, and the brands like that. There is also pet insurance. There is, credit cards and consumer installment loans for medical expenses, and even a bank now with CDs and checking and savings accounts. So some basic products that we're trying to grow. It's the former GE Capital that spun off from GE about 15 years ago and rebranded as Synchrony. And there are a couple of things about the organization. One is that it is siloed in a couple of respects. There are these different lines of business that have there's some central support units that execute the campaigns, but most of the marketing and the communication for customers is run a little differently and out of different systems for the different lines of business and different business units. And the other is that the communication is really aimed at account holders. And there are people who have, I think the average is almost 2 cards per person. And then, of course, you'll want to have people who are bank customers and credit card customers. And so right now, really, the communication is about 99% targeted at account holders because of activities or the status of their account, as opposed to trying to market or support them as a person who has a relationship through multiple products with Synchrony. And so we're moving to a new messaging platform, trying to reduce the number of systems that we have, get to a single stack platform that'll be multi-channel and multi-function. And this platform we're moving to is Zeta. So you can find them at zetaglobal.com. It's the ZMP. So it's going to do a few things. One is save us money. So their messaging costs for SMS and email are cheaper than the current providers. The second is increase of operational efficiency. They have new capabilities, and it gives us a chance to do some process re-engineering and improve the communication and the coordination between groups. And the third then is support growth in a couple of ways. Obviously, the business growth by reaching out to people, but the sophistication of our marketing and outreach. Right now, Synchrony doesn't have any journeys, if you're familiar with customer journeys, and trying to stay in touch with your customers and support them or offer them the right service at different stages of their life cycle and the product usage and ownership. So that could be multi-stage, and again, also multi-function. So there isn't coordination now between onboarding people as account holders and the servicing and collection. So Zeta will allow us to have a more centralized view of a person and their relationship with Synchrony and market and support them better. So that's the project that we're driving. And so it's an enterprise project. It's across collections, servicing, and marketing, the different functions, all the different lines of business, and different business units who are involved. Right now, we are wrapping up discovery, and we're moving into the solution design and moving pretty quickly to build and to try to launch the first few migrations of email and SMS campaigns this year. We have a program staff. I'm the program manager for it, making sure that we execute successfully. I work for Karen, who is responsible for the project hitting the business goals, so the cost savings and volume shifts and all of that. We have a solution architect. We have a Zeta platform owner on the Synchrony side. But the program is growing pretty rapidly. So as we move from discovery into solution design and we add a migration, each of those migrations is a work stream. We're doing email with the bank. We're doing SMS with collections. There's a lot to coordinate and to consolidate at the program level to keep track of the timelines and the risks and the dependencies on other programs. In addition, some of these work streams or some of these business units have program managers like the bank, project managers like the bank, and some don't. A lot of them, as the other thing I would say is that Synchrony is operationally very mature. And so all of these functions that are running and doing their own business and getting in touch with customers, very well run. What we're developing is this kind of program infrastructure where there are people who are dedicated to the migration who are outside the business units facilitating the process. And so the project manager is really within the program team, and part of that role is working with me to make sure that everything is running well at the program level. Another would be dipping into the work streams that don't have their own project managers to help them structure what they need to do to pull out the requirements and the risks and the timelines. So that is the setting for the project. I would say I'm very interested to see your Agile experience and your Scrum Master experience, because while I think we're getting a Scrum Master from the IT side, we were originally thinking of this as a project manager, but you and some of the other candidates bring a lot of the Scrum Master experience as well. And that's definitely pulling out the requirements and understanding how those feed in is definitely useful. I think it might even be more of a project manager, product owner role. So working with those business units on the migrations, identifying what they need, and then representing that to the IT team. So there would be a BA and a Scrum Master and an Agile pod, but you'd be mediating between the business unit and the IT side. I think that's right. And I think primarily it's project manager and product owner. And actually, let me ask you, since you said a lot about your Agile experience, we're more Agile on the IT side and less Agile on the marketing side. So the project is a hybrid. Some of these migrations, Zeta knows and has a deployment pattern for them. So some of it is more waterfall. What can you tell me about your waterfall experience, your non-Agile methodology and experience? Okay, appreciate that. So tell me, I give you a little bit of background on the project. It is enterprise wide. It is growing in scale, which is we're trying to increase the team. So I'd be interested to hear more about the size and scope of the project you're working on now or that you've worked on before. Mhm. 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 So yeah, that's helpful. And you dug into your methodology there and your approach, which I appreciate. Let me ask you about risk management that you mentioned a couple of times. Um, Actually, let me get specific. Can you give me an example of one of those risks that actually came to fruition, turned into an issue, and how you dealt with it? Mhm. So transparency is important in this project. There are a lot of we're even discovering every time we tried to stand up two work streams this week and discovered there were more people involved. And so there are, if you mention servicing, it turns out there are different servicing groups, a lot of people who are interested, who are hearing about this, who are excited about it. Um, how do you communicate bad news and setbacks on the project? Mhm. Yep. What about the flip side? How do you communicate good news and successes? Let's jump back to Agile for a second. What kind of methodologies are you using or have you used, and how do you how do you pick the methodology for the project? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Um, let's see if I have one more question. I want to make sure you have time to ask some as well. Well, actually, why don't you go ahead? What questions do you have for me about the organization, about the program, about the role? Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Sure. So I mentioned that, well, I alluded to. So let me be explicit. This is a new we're building program methodology and infrastructure for Synchrony. This is the most complex migration that they've done, and it's different. For last time, they migrated from Epsilon product A to Epsilon product B, and this is not a lift and shift. And so we're looking at process changes, at tying it into new capabilities. It relates to other programs and other technology changes that they're making at the same time. And so the complexity of this program and just even having people dedicated to facilitating that change is new. So that means a couple of things. So my focus is very much on building that methodology and on socializing it within Synchrony, understanding who we have to work with and what it takes to work this way, who needs to be involved, a lot of time on identifying, and convening, and then building the tools and that they call the playbook at Synchrony, so that this is repeatable. Even within this program, right, we're doing 4 migrations, but we've got to do 500 in the next 3 to 5 years. So how do we structure the program so that it gets to scale? So how does the project manager fit into that? In a couple of ways. One is that with the focus on the roadmap, on getting the resources, on the communications, and the reason we're looking for this role is I'm not able to be the project manager for the individual work streams and dig into the detail. I've been involved in some of the architectural decisions on account structures and IDs and all that, but as the number of migrations multiplies, I can't manage the program rollout and the detailed project management. Like I said, some of the groups have project managers who we still need to coordinate with, and Zeta has its own project managers, but we have, we're doing more than just implementing on their side. We're making changes. So part of it is being able to dig in to these work streams in a way that focuses on the risks, the results, the timelines. Are things on track? What's going to keep said? What are the impediments? And scouting ahead, but understanding what's happening in detail in some of those migrations. Another piece of that would be contributing to this, what we're calling the program infrastructure. So the experience and the ideas that you bring that will help this program succeed and help Synchrony learn from how this program succeeds is another part of it, right? Whatever tools or experience, if you've worked on a similar project or a similar type of program that goes in phases and rolls out, and you have ideas about how to capture and analyze and communicate all of that information to different audiences, then that's welcome as well. And then I think another way to describe it is that there probably will be, I think we're going to get a Scrum Master with Agile team, but as you mentioned, complementing that role, so being between the business and the dev team, being able to facilitate, as I said, that's why I think of that as a product owner type of role, to make sure that we're actually getting to an MVP, we're getting to something that actually will realize the results, but that ties in. If we're dependent on, right, they want to pull customer data from a system and it's not on their roadmap to have, it's not on the CDP's roadmap to have that later. We want to make sure we understand what the dependencies are, and for each of these migrations, what's the balance between just lift and shift over there now versus realizing all of the other business benefits that we want. How do we do each of them in stages or in phases, and what's going to determine, right? Do we change some, for example, I don't know, this is a great example, but at least an idea of a sequence. There was one organization that was going to shift from SMS to MMS before they moved to Zeta. So, well, do they do it before? Do we do that when they move to Zeta? Is that the launch for the MMS, or do we move all of their SMS first and then add MMS capability later? I mean, that's not the best example. We're talking to an organization, one of the units today, that is looking at some changes to their workflow, but Synchrony is also rebranding. So how do we sequence that? How do we figure out what the risks and the costs and the impact are? And does that happen, right? Does that happen in the first migration, or does it follow? And how does it tie to what's happening? And the advantage of having a project manager who's that these migrations will repeat, and part of what will repeat is how each of them is different and custom. So you start to get a sense of sort of an intake or an assessment for one of these work streams, right? What can we apply that's standard? What are the questions we need to ask about what it's different, how to scope it, how to stage it, and understanding how that ties to the overall program goals, and how this one project fits in with the other migrations that might be competing for attention and for a slot, right? Demanding to get in and be next on Zeta would be our dream, and we'll get there. Yes, we have, so we have 4 priority migrations. The bank has a project manager. The collections and servicing do not. So there were definitely a pretty concrete idea of where to slot you in. They're, like I said, there are 2 work streams we're starting to stand up now. And so they would need to be, right, they would need to be structured, and they don't have the project manager in there. So you'd be getting in pretty early. And yeah, I think of a specific idea of, 2 of the work streams plus some of the work that I do that I would want to split and coordinate with you at the program level on timelines. And a lot, it's a lot of, I measure a lot of my days in successful meetings, and so capturing that, or even being part of facilitating and making sure that the meetings are effective, and distributing that information and rolling that up into understanding what it means for the project plan. So um, yeah, if you were to start, I'd have a pretty good idea how to get you going. Yes, be working with me. I work in the transformation. I'm also through Aquin. I work for the transformation office, and my boss is now on staff, came from Aquin, and about 6 or 7 other consultants who work there. So the woman who's running the project, Karen, is in the marketing uh, organization. Even though it's an enterprise project, she's in charge of optimization and new capabilities. And so this project is under her, and she's on the hook for the cost savings and the volume shift in those pieces. I am her second to make sure that it works, but I'm actually in the transformation office, which is kind of a PMO. I'd say it's a change management and PMO cost center, or center of excellence. And so there are other project managers who are my peers in the transformation office. And then there are people throughout the organization who are subject matter experts on current operations you'd work with. So you'd work with me a lot. You'd work with Karen. You'd work with the solution architect, the BA when we get them, the Scrum Master, as those teams, right? We're moving from discovery into solution design. We have the budget for a team. We just need them allocated to the project. So you'd be working with the IT side pretty quickly as well. Mhm. We're hoping to do second/final interviews the end of this week, and make a decision. There's definitely a need now. I don't want to get caught in the trap where I don't have time to pick somebody because I don't have time to work on it. And then it takes a couple of weeks to do the onboarding, but we're hoping to pick, to select somebody, let them know by the end of this week. And then I would say April start, whatever works. Where are you based? Okay. Yeah. Synchrony is headquartered in Alpharetta outside of Atlanta. So working hours are East Coast. I'm central. So yeah, I mean, it's 8 to 4 for me. It's basically a 9 to 5 job. Yep. Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you. Pleasure talking to you. Appreciate learning more about what you did. I've got interviews through tomorrow, and then I'll get back to Mark by tomorrow, and he'll have feedback for you and let you know if we're going to bring you in for second/final interview. Thank you, Walter. You take care.